The Selfish Giant, written by Oscar Wilde, voice by A. Nageswar Rao. Every afternoon, as they were coming from school, the children used to go and play in the giant's garden. How happy we are here! They cried to each other. See how beautiful those flowers are! Oh, look at those birds! How sweetly they are singing! One day the giant came back. He had been to visit his friend. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in the garden. What are you doing here? He cried in a very gruff voice, and the children ran away. My own garden is my own garden, the giant said. He built a high wall all around it and put up a notice board. Trespassers will be prosecuted. The poor children had now nowhere to play. They tried to play on the road, but the road was very dusty and full of hard stones, and they did not like it. They used to wander round the high wall when their lessons were over and talk about the beautiful garden inside. How happy we were there, they said to each other. Then the spring came, and all over the country there were little blossoms and little birds. The birds did not care to sing in the giant's garden, as there were no children, and the trees forgot to blossom. The only people who were pleased were the snow and the frost. Spring has forgotten this garden, they cried. Then they invited the north wind to stay with them, and he came. He was wrapped in furs, and he rode all day about the garden and blew the chimney pots down. This is a delightful spot, he said. We must ask the hail on the visit. So the hail came. Every day for 3 hours he rattled on the roof of the castle till he broke most of the slates, and then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. I can't understand why the spring is so late in coming, said the selfish giant as he sat at the window and looked out at his cold white garden. I hope there will be a change in the weather. But the spring never came, nor the summer. The autumn gave golden fruit to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. One morning the giant heard some lovely music. He thought it must be the king musicians passing by. It was really only a little linnet singing outside his window, but it was so long since he had heard a bird sing in his garden that it seemed to him to be the most beautiful music in the world. Then the hail stopped dancing over his head, and the north wind ceased roaring, and a delicious perfume came to him through the open casement. I believe the spring has come at last, said the giant. What did he see? In every tree that he could see there was a little child. The trees were so glad to have the children back again. They had covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's heads. In one corner, it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the branches of the tree. "Climb up, little boy," said the tree. But the little boy was too tiny. "How selfish I have been! I will put up that poor little boy on the top of the tree. I will knock down the wall, and my garden shall be the children's playground forever and ever," he said. He crept downstairs and opened the front door quite softly and went out into the garden. Frightened, all the children ran away. The little boy did not run, for his eyes were so full of tears that he did not see the giant coming. The other children, when they saw that the giant was not wicked any longer, came running back, and with them came the spring. All day long they played, and in the evening they came to the giant to bid him goodbye. "But where is your little companion?" he said. "The boy I put into the tree." The giant loved him the best because he had kissed him. "We don't know," answered the children. "He has gone away." "You must tell him to be sure and come here tomorrow," said the giant. Years went over, and the giant grew very old and feeble. He could not play about any more, so he sat in a huge armchair and watched the children at their games and admired his garden. "I have many beautiful flowers," he said, "but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all." One winter morning, he looked out of his window as he was dressing. He did not hate the winter now, for he knew that it was merely the spring asleep and that the flowers were resting. Suddenly, he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked and looked. It certainly was a marvelous sight. In the farthest corner of the garden was a tree quite covered with lovely white blossoms. Its branches were all golden and silver fruit hung down from them, and underneath it stood the little boy he had loved. Downstairs ran the giant in great joy, and out into the garden. He hastened across the grass and came near to the child, and when he came quite close to his face grew red with anger, and he said, "Who hath dared to wound thee?" For on the palms of the child's hands were the prints of two nails, and the prints of two nails were on the little feet. "Who hath dared to wound thee?" cried the giant. "Tell me, that I may take my big sword and slay him." "Nay," answered the child, "but these are the wounds of love." "Who art thou?" said the giant, and a strange awe fell on him, and he knelt before the little child. And the child smiled on the giant and said to him, "You let me play once in your garden. Today You shall come with me to my garden, which is paradise. And when the children ran in that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, all covered with white blossoms.